Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Jays Latest. I'm your host, Craig Borden, and we're here to talk all things Toronto Blue Jays and enjoy the wonderful fun that is this wonderful offseason that is going on so far. I know we're waiting on news, but there has been no shortage of rumors floating around so far, and it has been very intriguing to see what has been going on. And the one main trend so far seems to be that the Blue Jays are hot for looking for back end of the bullpen, high leverage, oh my God level closer kind of stuff. So we've already talked over the last few weeks, Devin Williams, all the other fun punters that it can be, the Pete Fairbankses of the world. But the one that stuck out to me in the recent was the fact that the Blue Jays just don't seem to be letting up on that factor. So we've been hearing everything from regular everyday stuff to the one I enjoyed today, Raciel Iglesias. He has been a great leverage arm over the last few years. He's been insanely good. Then you hear, hey, maybe the Blue Jays have checked in on Devin Williams. So that is incredibly fun because that would just be so much fun to watch him be the rough spot that he was for the New York Yankees, expecting to be their monster closer, and then diving into the Blue Jays uniform, I'll just say, for that matter, and just crushing the Yankees with that fact. I think there would be something very, very fun to that point. And to that point, because of the fun that they've had, both of those gentlemen over the last few years, they're over 30, they're doing what they're doing, but they are probably going to be a lot cheaper than many of the other free agent market arms over the years here. So just to say right now, last year, Raciel Iglesias made $14.5 million. This year, he's projected to make $8.8 million. So that is a sizable decrease and puts them in the market that is a very good, fun time for the Toronto Blue Jays to be able to swipe in, get a great high upside guy versus paying almost $12 million to Seranthony Dominguez because he's a lot younger. And he's not that much younger. I'm sorry I even said that, But there is some pieces to that. It's not the same thing as going for the 34, almost 35-year-old Kyle Finnegan, who had one of his best Major League Baseball seasons in a while. It's not paying for Kenley Jansen, even though he's been insanely good over the last few years. It's not paying for the 32-year-old Ryan Helsley, which I do think that would be a fun one. I do think that will be good. Same thing with Pete Fairbanks, 32. Noticing a trend? It's just how the arm market has went for the relief pitching corpse that you need. The best free agent market relief pitcher that we've talked about is Edwin Diaz. He is 32 years old basically by the time spring training starts, and he's expecting to make $18 million. So if you're talking about quantity and quality in a plethora of places instead of just one guy, you're looking at the ballpark here of Devin Williams and Raciel Iglesias. Another gentleman, like we mentioned, was just the fact that, Kyle Finnegan would be a great arm. Tyler Rogers and Gregory Soto. I've always wondered how he hasn't put that next level, what he used to be when he was in Detroit, to that next level and just take it over the top. And he has not done that. And he's only 30, so there is a little bit more upside in that point. Hunter Harvey, another great arm. And then you got other guys that's just hanging around, Liz, and Paul Sewald too. He's been doing really well too. So there's a lot of free agent arms for the back end of this Toronto Blue Jays bullpen, and I do think there is a win here. It's a matter of how they piece this together and how it goes forward. And that will be the next part of our conversation, because not only do we have what we have going on in the free agent market, we have our own things to fight. 11/18 this Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. The rosters have to be completely ironed out. No more weirdness with 60-man DL, IL spots, all that kind of crazy. The 40-man rosters have to be just ironed out and cleaned up. So what do the Blue Jays have in that wonderful world? Because it's a little bit of a mess. And the big one is that Ricky Tiedemann, if we do not lock him up, is technically open for the Rule 5 draft. So that is what we're trying to protect against, is watching other teams come the winter meetings just go, hey, you know what? He looks better on my team. And then bringing him over to wherever we go. This is how we, funny enough, got some of the guys that are best players in Toronto Blue Jays baseball history. That is how the Blue Jays got MVP George Bell and expanded that out. So that is one of those levels that you can get in this whole thing. So basically, they have a few prospects that 5 are the main names that you would need to know to potentially protect with the 40-man roster decisions. Ricky Tiedemann is easily number 1 because he's currently our 4th prospect on our top 30. Tiedemann has been incredible. He hasn't got enough innings, is what has been the problem. He's been hurt. He had Tommy John. He's going to be bouncing back from that this spring. Great point to have as far as that goes, because Tiedemann has been a talent and a left-handed pitcher up to this point, and it's trying to just get him back to that point where he cannot be, hurt and keep moving things forward. And the other fun part is we have Yundrik Pagano. He's our number 7th prospect. We have Victor Arias. That's been another prospect. Josh Kasevich, who has been doing pretty well in Buffalo. And Edwin Duran are our catcher prospect. So those are our numbers 4, 7, 9, 12, and 13 of our top 30 prospects list. And the big reason that you hold on to these guys is so somebody can't just swoop in and steal them in that, like I said, that Rule 5 draft, or they just end up becoming minor league free agents, basically. So if they go through the Rule 5 draft and nobody picks them, they are 100% Toronto Blue Jays for this coming season. If somebody puts a claim on them during that draft, they have to make the 40-man roster on that other team they go to. So that is what the implication of this needs to be for the team that takes them. They have to be somebody that's going to be able to take up a spot for the 40-man roster. And if they don't, they revert back to the team that picked them. So if, let's say, Ricky Tiedemann was left open for some reason and unprotected, you turn around and he ends up being a guy that, whatever team that picked him up in the Rule 5 draft says, we don't have roster space for this guy, we can't do it anymore, and he doesn't make it through all the 2026 calendar season. He reverts back to being a Toronto Blue Jay, as an example. So the easy one in that group is to take Ricky Tiedemann. I think Panago comes with us too. I think those are your 2 guys just for outfield depth. Victor Arias is not too far behind that as a potential 3rd. And then unfortunately, as much as I like the contact and the things that Josh Kasevich can bring in, we just have too much shortstop and middle infield depth that this team can provide. And then Edwin Duran, I just don't think is close enough. So I think those 2 end up being left off of this protection, and it will turn out to be however it turns out to during the 40-man roster Rule 5 draft. But at a minimum, the Blue Jays cannot let a dominant potential lefty arm first-round draft pick like Ricky Tiedemann go out to that draft. He's going to pounce back from Tommy John and continue right where I think he left off. And he was doing pretty damn well in the Blue Jays minor league system before the injury. So it's only a matter of time before he makes it to the roster. So that's where I think we're at. We'll see what happens. But the way this show started, I think I need to talk what we still currently have in the kitchen in those cupboards ready to go for this Blue Jays minor league season / going into the regular season to have that depth that we have in the relief pitching position. We just talked the Ricky Tiedemans in the world, right? We are going to talk the fact that everybody has seemingly forgotten about 2 individuals in this roster, and the Blue Jays being what they are. And that fact is that Jimmy Garcia is still in this Blue Jays minor league. So did everybody forget about? That is the big fun as far as these roster decisions go. And not Ricky Tiedemann being what it is, but everybody forgets that we have Jimmy Garcia on this roster ready to go as well. He is guaranteed to be a Blue Jay this season unless something happens where he's traded. But Jimmy has been an amazing pitcher for this Blue Jays organization, and so good that we were able to trade him for some Jonathan Clase level outfield depth prior to this in the 2024 deadline. He was incredible with the Blue Jays. 30 innings, 2.7 ERA. Hasn't gotten a ton of innings in the last year. He got into only 22 games last year, 21 innings, but he was incredible through most of those. 3.86 ERA, and just was able to go through bats, barely a 1.1 ER whip, and was able to strike out a bunch of people. And I don't think that was ever with his best stuff this year. he was hurt. You could tell it. He ended up having to have, in his wonderful right arm that has all the lightning in it, he had to have some scar tissue cleaned up in his elbow. That was the final diagnosis and what happened. So there is some bounce back capability here for Jimmy Garcia to come back into the end of this bullpen and really match up really well with Trevor Hoffman, Jeff Hoffman. I wish it was Trevor Hoffman in the back of this bullpen. So if you talk about adding somebody like a Devin Williams or Raciel Iglesias or some combination of even those two, you still have the wonderful world that is that you still have Jimmy Garcia bouncing back from an injury that was surgery related, but it was not the recovery time of having something like Tommy John surgery. So there's a win there. You got to be able to bring him back and get what you need and go from there. But that is what the Toronto Blue Jays currently have in their roster, in their bullpen, and all these kind of things. So it's about finding more depth, more swing and miss, more support for Jeff Hoffman in the back of that bullpen. If not, replacing and supplanting him and sliding him down to a setup role. We'll see what happens, because obviously if somebody like Edwin Diaz comes in, he's going to get all the wonderful world an opportunity to be able to be the closer. And thankfully, Jeff Hoffman seems to be on board with that. So, Blue Jays fans, thank you very much for listening. As always, we are happy to hear you have you here at Jay's Latest. Make sure you tune in, like, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And we will talk to you as soon as humanly possible tomorrow morning, hopefully. Cheers. Let's go, Blue Jays.